Hello humans. Hello humans. Heading outbound now towards the coast. Got all my chores done. Only one item I couldn't obtain, so that's pretty good. We have that anyway, because tourists will come on in and they'll, for whatever reason, there isn't enough stock and they'll just buy us all out of a particular item. But it's pretty good shopping today and got a bunch of my other chores done, so that's good. We had to put some stuff off because of the weather. We had that terrible storm here, 105 miles an hour at Snoqualmie Falls Pass, 70 miles an hour in the other passes. We had 55 with gusts of over 65, but at our house, whole house is shaking. I'd had a bunch of trees taken down, so that was good. Moved all the trees and, just in time, had one fall and a bit of the fence got a ding in it, but that's okay. So not too bad, really fierce weather here. It's gonna keep going like this for a few more days, I hear. We're supposed to have a couple of inches of snow over these next couple of days on at the coast. Very unusual. Snow on the beach is just quite odd. Got to get back in gear with the housing stuff next week. I had to put off a lot of work because of the weather, right? It's miserable out here working in the rain anyway, this kind of rain. It's being driven horizontal, you know it. At a minimum, we got continuous 5-6 mile an hour winds. So most of the rain will be coming down at a really cute slant and it's going to be fierce to deal with. So right now I'm having so much rain I've got to slow down. We've got snow on the windshield. Looks like it's gonna hail. The big splatty snows, big fat guys. And so this will be a long, slow ride back to the property, but like I say, got stuff done. Well, we got flooding on the road here. This is the last of my lowland roads though, so pretty good, only one flooding spot. Man, is that some fierce hail anyway. So we can talk aliens for a while. Aliens are pretty pesky fuckers, right? They're still messing with us, you'll still get, and so we don't know a lot. We don't have any authority about the alien issue. We have old texts that point to the Elohim as being really nasty buggers, right? In the Elohim, the Anunnaki, there were no good Anunnaki, right? In spite of Carrie Cassidy thinking that, buying into that bastardized version of the Sumerian story of the Anunnaki which are the Elohim. So, in Hebrew, Akkadian, Canaanite, which is also Phoenician, Edomite, another language in that area. In all these languages we have the word lul for an individual, Elohim, for an individual of that species. And so, all these other languages discuss the Elohim. They talk about them as individuals, they have the titles, for 'em, and so on. And the Jews turned them into gods, right? The Anunnaki claimed to be gods to the Canaanites and the Akkadians, but you don't really get the sense that those people really bought into that idea. We find that that's different with the Judans. These guys were with the Judans for a very long time. We don't know any of the particulars. We don't have any kind of an authoritative record. We don't have any consistent record of when they came in and how they conquered us. We know some of the weapons, that kind of thing, and we know we were actually able to suss out a great deal of information about the Elohim. But we don't have a definitive kind of a timeline as to how all of this shit happened and when. We have to piece it all together, and we know that our history has been fucked over by the deep state, the Yellow Team worship cult, right? It's in their interest to keep everything tightly controlled, favoring their view of stuff, right? That there is an authority, that the Jews were chosen by a god and not just these strange space aliens, this kind of thing, right? So, it's a real shock, by the way, for some of these Israelis when you talk to them and you dispute haha that they're chosen people. It's like it is so inculcated into them that they can't fathom the world that they're not in charge because a God toes them right. And you get into it and it really fries their mind. I mean this one guy the first was talking to actually spit coffee out because he was so exasperated by what I was saying. It was just so disturbing to it anyway though. The yellow Hema is coming back. We've got space aliens showing up. A lot of these 10-foot high fellows walking around. We're seeing them in Brazil. It may have participated, to some extent, in the problems of Ecuador because of all the villages around Quito that are being raided at night, tactical gear, and bear in mind. Okay, these people in Ecuador, out the villages at night, they go to a common central Wi-Fi hub in the evenings, and they watch movies, right? They watch the Spanish language version of John Wick. They watch Men in Black, all of this kind of stuff. They know they are very astute. They're very capable of judging if it's a space alien or if it's a guy in tactical gear all kitted up with some technology, and they're reactive to that. Now, in Ecuador, if you go and look at what's showing up online, there are discussions of how to deal with these face peeler guys, right? Their ankles are covered with these weird boots that click into their hoverboards and apparently provide a guidance system through the body in terms of how to move the hoverboard. So, the supposition is that what we're hearing from Ecuador is going to be replicated elsewhere. That is, when these guys get off of the hoverboards, when they stop the things and step off of them, the hoverboards themselves will just sit there until they come back and click their boots into them. There may be a remote control. They may be able to get the hoverboard to follow them. There were a couple of instances that we think that was what was going on, but nonetheless, here we are. These villagers in Ecuador are analyzing the technology that's besetting them and coming up with appropriate conclusions, and they're actually, it's because they've been educated by all these fucking movies. Really a funny situation. So, I was talking earlier about Brett Weinstein and his problems with talking to people other than academics, that he now finds himself associating with, and the distress that he's causing himself as well as these others by his inappropriate use of language, but that entirely stems from the framework that he operates in, which is this particular narrow dime, that there is an authority in academia, is way up there. In that authority structure, and he used to be in academia, therefore he has a prison kind of a mentality, that your status is derived from what you were. So he thinks he has a higher status than a lot of the other people in this movement, and his language betrays that, even though it is unconscious, right? He's not doing it deliberately, and it's because of his non-awareness of the situation of the Wu brigades, the Wu army out here. And he just doesn't understand, right? You say things like team, and I really shouldn't use army, but because they both imply organized structure, and we don't have organized structure because they can be taken over by the Loam worship cult. 'Cause these guys are really into organizations, that's how they work. They come on in, and they say, oh, we need to organize, and then they take over the organization, and then you're under them from that point on. If you don't organize, or if you're in a self-organizing collective, then you can say, yeah, piss off, slow-mo, we're running just fine. You go organize your own ass. Anyway, though, so the yellow Hema appearing, we're having more and more of these alien incidents. This should really escalate. Bear in mind, I pointed out all this stuff around Christmas time, that we're getting really close to meeting the neighbors. We've got a bunch of questions we need to ask though, right? Because there are apparent battles on the moon, there's activity on the lunar surface that we can interpret based on our history as battles. It may be part of a war. Now, what I'm trying to do, by the way, is to keep pointing this out so that when we get into contention, the very first thing that all of us self-organizing collective people do is we go only fuck over the Elohim worship cult and we fuck over the banks right off the bat, so that they do anything, if they try any kind of shit at all, they know it's gonna come back on them right away, because that will be our opportunity. So, the situation with the aliens and the hypernovelty is going to combine, and the hypernovelty is going to exacerbate the appearance of the aliens, and the aliens are going to further boost hypernovelty because as soon as you got aliens walking around, then everybody can point to all of these Abrahamic religions and say, yo, dude, you've been worshipping space aliens. Right? There are no gods in the Bible. There's no God involved in the Old Testament or the New Testament. There's no God in Torah. Right, these are all interactions between humans and space aliens, and so we get into this situation now with the hypernovelty hitting us, where the total lack of authorities is gonna fuck with all these people's heads that need that stuff to operate. But about 2/3 of the population are gonna have a seriously hard time in hypernovelty. We will see episodes where non-drugged up people are just like standing stock still, unable to have their minds function enough to be able to take another step. It won't be that they're tired, it won't be any of that kind of stuff. It will be a mental condition that will arise as yet another part of the hypernovelty roads of the neurotomy that they've been operating on, and they're gonna just have to work through it. Right, that's the big part here, is that this is gonna be collectively experienced but individually experienced to the level individually recovered, so we are not going to be able to recover the population. We're not gonna be able to recover Christianity. It's gonna have to go through all this shit. It's gonna have to go way deep and deal with all this crap. And it does not matter what is written in the books, okay? That's what had people have to understand. I'm not debating anything in anybody's Bible, although I will debate you on that because there's over 1,000 versions of the Bible. And I've got like 6 or 8 of them at home in various different hard formats. And then there's hundreds that you can find in PDF format, and they vary widely. Many of them have 2 and 3 times the amount of text as the official Bibles, like the Geneva Bible or the King James Version or any of them, right? So, the best versions, by the way, are the interlinear translation versions, and there you read the actual word and what it actually means. And they have commentary on that word, why it's translated this particular way, and so on, because there are words that you could translate one way or another depending on how you're seeing the case of that word. Because Hebrew doesn't have vowels, okay, so nobody knows how the Bible was pronounced. So, if someone were to sit down and read the Bible to you in Hebrew, you would have no fucking clue as to how it was going to be pronounced way back when, because there were no vowels in the words, right? It's all consonants. So, it's a weird kind of experience that way. So, our whole authority thing here of disappearing is going to impact all of this stuff as the space aliens come on out. Then you'll have more and more people that will be basically climbing onto the same boat that I'm on, right? Which is, the Elohim were nasty, abusive fuckers, and Judaism is a Stockholm syndrome that's been mistaken for a religion and a culture. And then it was just 2,000 years of abuse of the Judans, and that's the real hard part to wrap your head around. The Jews are acting out the abuse, but they are people who never suffered it. There was no Jew that was involved in the Middle East with the Elohim. It was all Judans and Judahites, okay, which are not Jews. The Jews came along later, claimed Judaism, which again is a Stockholm syndrome that's been mistaken for a religion, and they adopted it into a culture. And now we've got all these Hasidics running around doing korbanot, which is, 9 years or younger. That's really what they're after. And draining their blood and all this kind of shit, right? So, it's an ugly situation that we've got going on here. A lot of this, all of this, stems from these fucking Elohim. We would not have this problem if we didn't have the Elohim in our past, and humanity has a very nasty Elohim problem. According to my data sets and what we're seeing going on, which have been pretty accurate recently, Earth's Elohim problem is gonna get very dynamic over this year, next year, and so on. And we're gonna have to interact with these fuckers, and they appear to be interacting with some other party in a violent way in their lunar activities. So, now we have to start thinking about not only geopolitics but planetary politics in our solar system, and who's doing what to whom, and why. And we don't know any of this, it's all speculation. Anybody that says they know is full of shit. We need a collective effort to get at this stuff because we're unable to take anybody's word as authority on any of this stuff. Especially as we go further into this period of hypernormality. And we will all even start questioning our own conclusions based on the fact that we've got these hypernovel conditions, right? So, I'm thinking that by April 3rd or so, that first week in April is gonna be filled with shit. I mean, we're gonna have all kinds of crap going down, but the dataset said that all the woo people around the planet would be really getting onto the same plane, so to speak, where we would all understand that, yeah, hypernovelty is here, and we're feeling it, we're seeing it, things are happening, etc. Now, you're gonna have a lot of the normies that are gonna be resistant to hypernormality. They will cling to authority like you would not believe, right? Even though they've been abused by these Elohim, and there's nothing but, you're bereft of it, but what are you giving them? Well, it's all food, it's all blood tithing, one way or another. And so we get the situation where these people, the normies, are going to seize on authority and grip it as hard as they possibly can. All and hold on with their fingernails and shit all the way down. So, you'll have normies, even after June, that will be in denial, that will be unable to cope, they'll be stuck still in the middle of. And because of the hyper-novelty, it'll exhibit itself in all different kinds of ways. One of the great ways is collectively is we're gonna append all of academia and say that, oh, all these guys are just stupid fuckers and we've been played. So Einstein was just put in place to play science. He didn't know science, he didn't invent anything, he didn't come up with shit. And then his buddies in the Elohim cult gave him a prize, they called it the Nobel Prize. And they gave him a prize for getting in there and fucking over our science and pushing down on Tesla. It's all connected, it's all coordinated. They can't have us have Tesla tech because there's too many of us and too few Loam, and we'll go join once we get a really good fleet of UFOs and shit. We'll go join whoever the fuck is fighting the yellow team. The enemy of my enemy is my friend, or at least he's my battle companion. So that's basically where we're moving now. We're gonna start seeing more and more of these, let's say, distant or removed or not quite able to touch them episodes of Space Aliens, and it's gonna keep increasing and keep increasing. This is not a Project Bluebeam Space Alien Invasion. Project Bluebeam, the mere idea of Project Bluebeam is the psyop. They want you to think that these things that the Elohim worship cult does not want you to ever recognize the Elohim on the planet because that degrades their ability to claim that they are chosen by God. If you think that if you recognize that the Elohim or the quote gods in the Bible and then the Elohim are walking around here, you can say, yeah, fuck that, who gives a shit if the Elohim chose the Jews, poor bastards, right? But we know it's not the Jews, it was the Judans, but all this shit's gonna come on out, just gonna rake it over the coals, tear it apart, we're gonna rip it open and say, what the fuck are you people doing here, right? That it is your law that everybody should go 3 times a year to Jerusalem, and when you go there you're supposed to think good thoughts about boiling Christ and feces and urine and in puke for thousands of years because he's the idolater that gets people to not worship the Elohim. So we're gonna have to look at all of this shit, right? Anyway, so those people like, I'm in kind of a little fight with, Bo Pony, and Bo is saying, oh my God, he's saying that his God, that I need to come to his God. I need to come to some kind of an acceptance of his God in order that I might go to his God's heaven. It's like, no, Bo, thank you very much, you're totally full of shit. You're worshipping an Elohim, and nothing in that book is valid. Could be all factual, Daniel's timeline, all of that shit, can be all factual, but it is all based on space aliens. And so, no gods are involved. So, if you want to worship space aliens, that's fine. But if you come to me and tell me that I've got to worship your space aliens, I'm gonna belt you in the mouth. I'm not gonna have that shit, right? I'm not gonna be put down, dominated, and have an authority of a space alien put over me. And so, it's like, no dude, So anyway, we're coming up into the hyper-novelty. The aliens are gonna be a big part of it. And they're gonna be a big part of it in multiple different ways. Not only in terms of our technology and that kind of shit coming out, 'cause we're gonna get alien technology. And then, as I say, the hyper-novelty is gonna crack open the authority of religion. The Abrahamic religions are going to go into such a huge amount of turmoil. You cannot believe it. All internal, okay? And so, religions will fall apart, We'll see churches and such sold because of the shit that's underneath them. You may find towns that just get together and bulldoze the fucking synagogues down and start rooting around to see what's underneath them, because this is not a religion. It is a cult. A bloodletting, crucifying cult that is built around space aliens and abuse by those space aliens, which they keep acting out, somehow thinking that will save them. There's something to be saved. So, Christians think you're saved by believing in Christ, okay? Jews think you're saved by ritual acts that will appease the god so they'll look kindly on you. Well, the gods that they're trying to do this for are these Elohim bastards who are really ugly beings who have nothing good at all for humans, and so they want you to be anti-human in order to have favor in their eyes. Crap, that stalker guy's on me, so we'll see if he's gonna hassle me when I come up here to my stop. Anyway, though, the way it's all gonna unfold, we can predict to some little tiny bit. But the individual particulars are gonna be just so outrageous we would never have said, oh geez, this is gonna happen as a result of hypernormality. We're just not able to do that because we've never been in a hyper-novel situation before. We've never lived in a world without the Elohim as the ultimate authority. And that's, of course, that's been imposed by these Abrahamic religions, which take over what? At least 2/3, maybe 2/3 of the population. No, of the planet, no, maybe like 3/7, something like that. are bound up in the Abrahamic religions. And so those are the guys who are going to really have to go through some shit here as we get into our hyper-novelty period. And they end up digging into their religion to see what the fuck it's all based on. And then they'll find out. They won't like it. There you go. The stalker was too tight on my tail. I turned too quick. There were cars behind him. He had to keep going straight. So I mean I don't have to deal with the fucker. And I've got security systems all the hell and gone here. So I've got it all recorded. And I can prove that he tried to do something first. Anyway, so there we go guys, back now. I gotta go and do chores here. Just a weird day with all the storms and stuff. And then we're supposed to get the snow, and I'll do some work. Haha. Yeah. So, okay. So I'll do some work later, alright? Anyway, guys, hyper-novelty is coming. Space aliens are here, and you're gonna see more and more of them as we go forward into the hyper-novelty. And just watch out for all the people. They're gonna freak out, you know. If you see them standing in the middle of the road, maybe help them off to the side. Probably wouldn't be able to do much more for them, but take it easy, guys.